This is the inspiring story of Frida Kahlo, the Hispanic artist. The early years. Frida was born in Mexico on July 6, 1907. Frida had an imaginary friend. She would pretend they climbed out the window into their own world. Frida began to draw this world. This was the beginning of Frida the artist. Frida's father was Guillermo Kahlo, and he was a Jewish-Hungarian-German immigrant. Frida's mother was Matilda Calderon Gonzalez. She was a Mestiza Mexican woman. Frida was very close to her father. He was a painter and photographer. Frida was born in the blue house that was built and painted by her father. In the portrait on the left, this is titled Self-Portrait 1922. This portrait was painted before Frida's accident. She was only 15 years old. The early years. When Frida was 6, she got polio. The children at her school called Frida Peg Leg Frida. Polio caused her right leg to be in pain and to be thinner than her left leg. Frida's father encouraged her to swim, box, and ride her bike to make her legs stronger. Frida was able to travel with her dad while she was recovering. He taught Frida to draw. After Frida was able to go back to school, she was accepted into National Preparatory School. Frida wanted to be a doctor. Only 35 out of 2,000 girls were accepted. The girls at the school were not allowed to be around the boys during recess. The painting on the left is titled My Grandparents, My Parents, and Me, 1936. The red ribbon in the painting represents Frida's bloodline and family tree. The early years. Frida fell in love with the work of Leonardo da Vinci while in preparatory school. Frida was rebellious in the classroom. She was outspoken and was always getting in trouble. She was once kicked out. She would rent bicycles and not return them. Her friend, Renato Ludic, would have to bail her out of police headquarters. Renato would become a famous poet and journalist. On the left, we see Self-Portrait in Velvet Dress, 1926. Frida was hoping to use this painting to regain the love of Alexandro. It did work, but then his family convinced him to leave Frida. Mexico's government. Frida saw problems with Mexico's government. She felt that the leader of Mexico was not listening to the people. The Mexican Revolution was beginning. Frida wanted a fair country for everyone. Frida and her mom would welcome soldiers in their home and feed them. Frida and her boyfriend, Alexandro Gomez Arias, joined the people's fight for Mexico. At age 15, many artists were invited to come to the school to create giant murals on the wall. The murals showed what was happening in Mexico at that time. On the left, we see the self-portrait along the borderline between Mexico and the United States, 1932. The sun and moon are over Mexico, which was where Frida wanted to be. Frida was longing for her home in Mexico. Mexico's government. One of the artists that was working on the murals was Diego Rivera. Frida liked Diego and would play tricks on him. She would rub the steps with soap, hoping that he would fall. We can see on the left the painting My Dress Hangs There, 1933. The painting captures the modern industrial society of the United States. But Frida felt that the society was decaying and losing its values. She wanted to go home to Mexico, but Diego did not. Frida's accident. In 1925, she was traveling on a wooden bus to school with Alexandro Gomez Arias when they were in an accident. Frida was 18. Frida was seriously injured and almost died. She had 32 surgeries and was in bed for months. The doctors didn't think she would walk again. Frida's mom and dad gave her paints and a special easel to paint in her bed. She would paint her feet because it's all she said she could see. Frida also painted butterflies all over her cast. Frida's dad put a mirror over her head. She did a self-portrait of herself in a velvet dress. We see the painting The Bus, 1929, on our left. This painting shows the influence on Frida Kahlo's political attitudes. They are representatives of different classes of Mexican society. This painting is also a depiction of the bus accident which happened in 1925. Frida's accident. Frida used her art to express how she felt. She showed sadness in her art. Frida stayed in bed for 2 years. She painted over 24 paintings. Although Frida worked very hard, she learned to walk again. She was in a lot of pain. She walked with a limp. Frida wore long dresses to cover her limp, but a special flair for fashion. When Frida got better, she took 4 of her paintings to Diego Rivera to get his opinion. She remembered him from painting murals at her school. Frida was brave and said, "Diego, come down and look at my paintings." We see the painting 4 Inhabitants of Mexico, 1938. This painting represents Frida's Mexican heritage instead of her family heritage. This painting shows 4 personalities: a Judas, a pre-Columbian symbol from Nayarit, a skeleton from the Day of the Dead, and a straw man riding a donkey. Frida and Diego. Diego Rivera looked at Frida's paintings and gave her his honest opinion. Diego loved Frida's work. He told her to do another painting and he would be over next Sunday to look at it. Diego had studied Cubism in Paris. Diego was 20 years older than Frida. Frida was 21 and Diego 41. Diego and Frida got married on August 21st, 1929. Frida's parents did not approve. They said it was like an elephant marrying a dove. Frida wore a green dress to their wedding. During this time in history, many people would not even say legs. They would say, "On which I stand." The painting is Frida and Diego Rivera, 1931. Frida created this as a wedding portrait. It symbolizes the ups and downs of their marriage. Frida and Diego. After they were married, Frida stopped painting and learned to cook and take care of Diego. Frida did not wear the traditional Mexican clothes until she was married. They had 2 houses that connected on the top floor. They each stayed on their side of the house. Diego was asked to go to San Francisco, California to paint murals. In the early years of Frida's art, she painted small 1-foot square paintings. She painted events in her childhood, Mexico, and folk art. She also painted church scenes of people that were saved by miracles and communities being deported. The portrait of Diego Rivera. This painting when Diego was released by the hospital. He was treated for kidney issues and an eye infection. Frida and Diego. Frida went with Diego, but Frida did not feel at home in the United States and wanted to go home. While in San Francisco, she met a doctor named Leo Eleazar. He treated her for her leg pain. Then Frida started to paint again. Frida painted Frida and Diego Rivera, a portrait of them on their wedding day. The San Francisco Society of Women Artists included the painting in their 6th annual exhibition. It was Frida's first painting to show in public. Frida and Diego moved from California back to Mexico, then to New York, Michigan, and back to Mexico again. There are pictures of Frida and Diego's life on the left that show the exciting life that they shared and her love for animals and their love for each other. Frida and Diego. Frida had 3 miscarriages during her marriage. They were all due to her accident. Frida and Diego were devastated. During Frida's last miscarriage, she was in the hospital for 13 months and almost died. In the painting Diego and I, 1949, this is considered Frida's final self-portrait. This painting represents her sadness with her husband Diego. The painting on her forehead could represent the space he took in her mind. This painting is estimated to sell for $30 million. This could be the highest selling painting by a female artist ever sold. Frida's art career and life. After Frida and Diego moved back to Mexico, the University of Mexico noticed Frida's paintings and asked her to put them in a group exhibit. Someone from a gallery in New York saw Frida's paintings at the exhibit and asked her to include her paintings in an exhibit there. In 1938, it was revolutionary for a woman and an artist from Mexico to be featured in this New York exhibit at that time. Many people thought Frida was a surrealist. Surrealist artists find a way to show their art through subconscious minds and dreams. On the left, we see a photograph of Frida at the Brooklyn Museum. Frida's art career and life. Frida did not believe she was a surrealist. Frida said, "They thought I was a surrealist, but I wasn't. I never painted dreams or nightmares. I painted my own reality." She created art from her own pain. She painted things in her own life, such as her spider monkeys, songbirds, parakeets, cats, dogs, and a fawn named Granizo. Frida loved living in the blue house. Frida loved dressing her table up, just like her hair. They had dinner and parties in the blue house. They argued in the blue house, and they sang in the blue house. And the painting on the left is named The Wounded Deer 1946. In 1946, Frida had surgery on her spine, which failed. In this painting, Frida depicted herself as the young stag. In the left-hand corner, she wrote karma, which means destiny or fate. Frida's art career and life. Frida loved decorating her house with paper mache. She had a skeleton as big as a person next to her bed. Frida's success was just beginning. The Louvre Museum in Paris bought self-portrait called The Frame. This was part of their permanent collection in 1939. Frida became friends with artists Georgia O'Keeffe and Pablo Picasso. He gave Frida a pair of hand earrings. Frida loves celebrating the Day of the Dead. It is a time to remember family and friends who have died. Frida would decorate a table with her mom and dad's favorite foods and small dancing skeletons. And we can see the painting The Frame 1939 on the left of this page. The Louvre Museum bought this self-portrait as part of their permanent collection. Frida's art career and life. Frida kept a diary. She drew interesting and strange drawings along with words in her diary. She used colored pencils, pens, and watercolors. Frida created 143 total paintings and 55 self-portraits. And you can see actual paintings and drawings from Frida's journal on the left of this page. Frida and Diego divorce. Frida and Diego spent much of their time arguing. They decided to divorce in 1939. After Frida left Diego, she cut her hair very short and wore men's clothing. They still loved each other and kept in touch. They both were heartbroken. This is the time when Frida began painting the two Fridas. During this time, Frida painted the wounded table. In her painting, the table is bleeding and has human legs. This is how Frida felt about the divorce, wounded. Memory, the Heart, 1937. In this painting, Frida expressed the pain of her marriage with no expression on her face except tears. She cropped her hair and was wearing European-style clothing. Frida and Diego's divorce. During this time, Frida's health was declining. She was put in 25 different corsets. She called them punishment. Her doctor told Frida she would have to stay in bed and encouraged her to remarry Diego. They remarried in 1940 on Diego's birthday, 1 year after their divorce. While in the hospital, she became addicted to pain medication. Frida developed gangrene in 1953 and they had to amputate part of Frida's leg. Frida kept a love journal to Diego. Frida made this statement: "There have only been 2 accidents in my life. One was a streetcar, the other was Diego." And there's a portrait on the left of Frida's plaster corset with hammer and sickle, an unborn baby, 1950. The death of Frida's father. Frida's father passed away while Frida was recovering in bed. Frida was very depressed because she loved her father so much and they were so close. Frida knew her father would not want her to stay depressed, so she began teaching art and loved it. Years later, Frida began teaching at the National School of Painting, Sculpture, and Engraving in Mexico City. She told her students to go outside into the streets for ideas. After just a few months of teaching, Frida's health was declining again. She invited her students to her house where she could teach them. In the photograph on the left, we see Frida painting and teaching from her bed. Frida's grand farewell. More than anything, Frida wanted an exhibit in Mexico. In 1953, her work was exhibited at the Modern Art Gallery in Mexico City. Frida's doctor told her that she could not attend the exhibit and had to stay in bed. So Frida, being the clever woman she was, had them carry her to the exhibit on a stretcher and then place her in her bed. She jokingly told her doctor that she stayed in bed. Frida had photographs of all of her family on her bed. Frida was brave, independent, and fought for what she believed in. Even when she had to stay in bed, she kept dressing up, wearing jewelry and braids in her hair with ribbons and flowers. And on the left, we see an actual photograph of Frida's bed and a painting, The Dream, The Bed, 1940. In Mexico, death is not to be mourned but celebrated. This painting shows the skeleton is awake and watching over Frida. Frida's grand farewell. On July 13, 1954, Frida's body could no longer take the pain and she died. She was 47. The Hispanic culture felt it was a blessing to be born and die in the same house. One of Diego's final quotes: "Frida put agonized poetry on canvas." Diego died 3 years after Frida. Frida became known as an activist for handicapped people, the Mexican culture, and feminism. And the painting on the left is Viva la Vida, Watermelons, 1954. This was Frida's final painting. Frida Kahlo inscribed Vida la Viva on the central melon wedge at the bottom of the canvas, which translates as Long Live Life, just 8 days before she died. Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderon, born July 6, 1907, died July 13, 1954.